Part 9, Realm and Commonwealth by Stephen Spiers. Copyright 2018. Government House, Canberra, for press. Attached is a copy of the Australian Order of Precedence of Honours and Awards, which will be published in the Australian Government Gazette today. The first section lists the new Australian honours and awards which were approved by Her Majesty the Queen on 14 February 1975. The second section is a composite list showing the Australian and British honours and awards together in their relative order of precedence. It will be noted that the Cross of Valour ranks next to the Victoria Cross and the George Cross. The Companion of the Order of Australia ranks ahead of the Companion of Honour and ahead of all Knights Commander and Knights Bachelor. For ease of identification, the Australian decorations are marked with an asterisk in the composite list. In accordance with the Constitution of the Order of Australia, the Governor-General is Chancellor of the Order and the Principal Companion in the Civil Division. Consequent upon Her Majesty's approval of the Australian Order of Precedence of Honours and Awards, the Governor-General will henceforth use the post-nominal initials AC of a Companion of the Order of Australia. The Governor-General's full post-nominal initials are now AC, KCMG, K St J, QC. Signed, David I. Smith, Official Secretary to the Governor-General, 27 May 1975. Special Australian Government Gazette, number S28, Canberra, Monday, 17 February 1975. Australia, Elizabeth R. Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen of Australia and her other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth. To all to whom these presents shall come, greetings. Whereas it is desirable that there be established an Australian Society of Honour for the purpose of according recognition to Australian citizens and other persons for achievements or for meritorious service. You know that we, by the presents, do establish a Society of Honour to be known as the Order of Australia, and we do ordain that the Order shall consist of the Sovereign, our Governor-General of Australia, and such members and honorary members as our Governor-General, with our approval and in accordance with the Constitution of the Order, shall appoint. And we do further ordain that the Constitution of the Order shall be the Constitution set out in the schedule. And we do hereby command that a seal be immediately engraven, and that seal shall be the seal of the Order, that the ordinances of the Order shall be signed by our Governor-General of Australia and sealed with the seal of the Order, and that the ordinance so signed and sealed shall have the same force and effect as if they had been recited in these our letters patent and given under the Great Seal of Australia. In witness whereof we have caused these our letters to be made patent. Ls. Given under the Great Seal of Australia at our court at St. James on 14 February 1975 by Her Majesty's command. E.G. Whitlam, Prime Minister. Schedule. Constitution of the Order of Australia. The Order of Australia. 1. 1. The Order of Australia, hereinafter called the Order, shall consist of all civil division and a military division. 2. A person appointed to the Order shall be appointed in the civil division or in the military division. 3. Appointment to the Order shall be as companion, officer, or members. 4. Every Australian citizen appointed to the Order shall be a member of the Order, and every other person appointed to the Order shall be an honorary member of the Order. Officers and Council of the Order of Australia. 2. The Governor-General of Australia shall be the Chancellor of the Order and the principal companion in the civil division. 3. The Chancellor is charged with the administration of the Order. 4. 1. There shall be a council for the order, hereinafter called the council, which shall consist of A. The Chief Justice of Australia, B. The Vice President of the Executive Council, C. The Secretary, Department of the Special Ministries of State, or, if another office is prescribed for the purpose of this paragraph, the person occupying the office so prescribed. D. The officer of the Defence Force occupying the officer of Chief of the Defence Force Staff, or, if another office is prescribed for the purpose of this paragraph, the officer of the Defence Force occupying the position, the office so prescribed. E. Not more than 9 persons appointed by the Governor-General, of whom not more than 6 shall be persons nominated by the States of Australia. 2. A member of the council referred to in paragraph 1(c) shall hold office for a period of 2 years from the date of his appointment and is eligible for reappointment. 3. The Governor-General shall appoint one of the members of the council to be chairman of the council and another member of the council to act as chairman in the event of the chairman being unavailable to act in the office. 5. The office shall A. Consider nominations of Australian citizens for appointment to the order. B. Make recommendations to the Governor-General in relation to those nominations. And C. Advise the Governor-General on such other matters concerning the order as he may refer to the Council for consideration. 6. 1. There shall be a Secretary of the Order who shall be appointed by the Governor-General. 2. The Secretary shall maintain the records of the Order and of the Council, and shall perform such other functions in respect of the Order as the Governor-General directs. 7. The Governor-General may appoint such other officials for the Order as he, or in his sole discretion, considers advisable. 8. A person is not a member of the Order by reason only of his being a member of the council or an official of the order. Draft. Honours. This paper is drafted on the assumption that a decision in principle has been made to reintroduce Commonwealth nominations for imperial honours, but that the extent of this is not yet determined, and that it is intended that the awards under the Order of Australia will continue. Background. There is a notional allocation of imperial honours to Australia and a notional allocation of these by the Governor-General as between federal and state governments. There is no obligation on the federal government or any state government to take up its share, and if not taken up, the allocation is not reallocated. The Whitlam government decided not to go ahead with the New Year Honours 1973, and there have been no nominations for imperial honours since then. The Commonwealth quota was not reallocated to the states, although in practice it appears that the number of imperial honours recommended by the state governments had been creeping up within the total fixed Australian allocation. It is open to the Commonwealth Government to resume recommendations for imperial honours at any time. Prior advice to the Palace would be a courtesy. It is traditional that the Commonwealth nominates for service in the national field and the states for service in the state field. In practice, there is not much overlap, and any overlap is sorted out by the Governor-General. There are 2 lists, birthday and New Year, and nominations are requested through the Governor-General some weeks in advance of the announcement. Prior to 1973, the practice was for the responsible department to compile lists of names and to comparison of the 2 systems. The order of precedence approved by the Queen in respect to imperial honours and the Order of Australia are shown in the list at Attachment A. In general, the Order of Australia for Australians ranks higher in each class of honours. Our understanding is that the Council of the Order feels that there should be another class inserted at a level lower than Member of the Order to fill what seems to them to be a gap. State governments have an opportunity to nominate the Council of the Order of Australia and make recommendations to the Council. In respect of those states also recommending for imperial honours, it would be said that the two systems operate in parallel in those states anyway. Reintroduction of imperial honours by the Commonwealth Government may for the time reduce the status of the Order of Australia, but perhaps not permanently so. Full acceptance of the Order of Australia would clearly take time. If the Order is not to be fully supported and its standards maintained by the government, then it would probably be best that it be scrapped altogether and quickly so that there is not some irreparable damage to the notion of wholly Australian awards. Systems in parallel. In respect to non-bravery awards, there may not be that much difficulty in operating the systems in parallel. One cause for consideration is whether only the higher classes, knighthoods, should be reintroduced and the Order of Australia relied upon for lower classes. The question really is the extent to which the Prime Minister wishes to retain honours in his personal gift, which he can do under the imperial system, but not, as at present, organised under the Order of Australia. Elizabeth R. Australia. Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen of Australia and her other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth. To all to whom these presents shall come, greetings. Whereas it is desirable that there be established an Australian Society of Honour for the purpose of according recognition to Australian citizens and other persons for achievement or for meritorious service. You know that we, by these presents, do establish a Society of Honour to be known as the Order of Australia. And we do ordain that the Order shall consist of the Sovereign, our Governor-General of Australia, and such members and honorary members as our Governor-General, with our approval, and in accordance with the Constitution of the Order, shall appoint. And we do further ordain that the Constitution of the Order shall be the Constitution set out in the schedule. And we do hereby command that a seal be immediately engraven, and that the seal shall be the seal of the Order, that the ordinances of the Order shall be signed by the Governor-General of Australia and sealed with the seal of the Order, and that the ordinance so signed and sealed shall have the same force and effect as if they had been recited in these our letters patent and given under the Great Seal of Australia, in witness whereof we have caused these our letters to be made patent, given under the Great Seal of Australia at our court at St. James on 14 February 1975. L.S. By Her Majesty's Command, E.G. Whitlam, Prime Minister. Elizabeth R., Commonwealth of Australia. Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen of Australia, and her other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth, to all to whom these presents shall come, greetings. Whereas, by letters of patent passed under the Great Seal of Australia, bearing date at St. James, the 14th day of February 1975, we did establish a Society of Honours known as the Order of Australia, and made other provisions with respect to membership and the constitution of the Order. And whereas we are minded to establish a new category of membership and a new award within the Order, and to make farther and other provisions with respect to eligibility, membership, and the constitution of the Order. Now you, that we, by these presents, declare our pleasure that the above-mentioned letters patent of the 14th day of February 1975 be amended, but without prejudice to anything lawfully done thereunder as set out in the schedule. And we do ordain that appointments to a category in the civil division of the order made before the day of these our letters patent shall be treated as having been made to that category in the general division of the order, in witness whereof we have caused these our letters to be made patent, given under the Great Seal of Australia at our court at St. James on 24 May 1976, LS, by Her Majesty's Command, Malcolm Fraser, Prime Minister. Prime Minister, Press Statement Number 79, 1 May 1973. Public Service Bonding. The Prime Minister announced today the discontinuance of bonding of staff in the Commonwealth Service. Opinion throughout the community is increasingly opposed to the bonding of trainees. The Carmel Committee of Inquiry into Education in South Australia in 1970 recorded its opposition to the whole principle of bonding and thought it should be abolished as soon as circumstances permitted. The Bell Committee of the Inquiry into Teacher Education in New South Wales in 1971 expressed similar views. The Senate Standing Committee on Education, Science and the Arts in 1972 concluded that bonding was so financially and socially wasteful that it should be scrapped. The Public Service Board considers that in current circumstances in the Commonwealth Service, bonding is no longer appropriate. Existing bond commitments will not be enforced. Money paid by people in respect of contracts they have previously breached will not be refunded. Other aspects of cadetships and other trainee schemes are being reviewed in the light of the current circumstances, and where appropriate, these will be discussed by the Public Service Board with staff associations. Canberra, ACT. Before we go any further, we need to stop and think about what is actually going on here. This is quite a hefty amount of changes being done in a very short time in secret meetings. Unlike the Imperial Conferences 1926 surrounding the Balfour Declarations 1926, these changes were now being held behind closed doors, and the people none the wiser to what is actually happening to them as a people. So who are Australians as a people? We have defined throughout this paper a birthright in what Queen Victoria created as a realm, in which the Commonwealth of Australia was created by the men of the realm, an estate with wealth common to those with beneficial interest or birthright. As men of God, defenders of faith, we have defined the use of coats of arms to represent that realm. So how were these former British subjects treated post-Constitution? Oath. I, AB, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Victoria, her heirs and successors, in according to law. So help me God. Affirmation. I, AB, do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Victoria, her heirs and successors, according to law. Note: the name of the King or Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, for the time being, is to be substituted from time to time. We can see by the Oath of Allegiance in the schedule to the Constitution at Clause 9 of the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, July 1900 UK/PGA. That oath is taken through the monarch who holds the realm vested. This is important because you are not taking an oath of allegiance to the Commonwealth of Australia. The Commonwealth of Australia is a body corporate that exists after your existence in the realm, to which oath is taken through a monarch. We have also shown throughout this paper that the realm vested in Queen Victoria is through the Imperial Crown, specifically noted in the Royal Style and Titles 1917, wherein George V proclaimed to only retain style and title relevant to the birthright left by Queen Victoria. In this, we have a kingdom, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, in which the Commonwealth of Australia was formerly a colony, then Dominion, and now sovereign in its own rights through not only defence of the Commonwealth of Australia by Anzac defending the realm, but now also by Balfour Declaration 1926 and Imperial Conference 1926, dividing the empire into a Commonwealth of British nations and putting the Commonwealth of Australia at jetsam. Uniquely, though, at the opening of the old Parliament House in Canberra in 1927, the building continued to use the royal arms of Queen Victoria, along with coats of arms given royal assent in 1912. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland adopted a slightly altered coat of arms, with small shamrocks defined down the harp edge of the third quarter of the shield. Canada had been issued with a coat of arms, whereas the Commonwealth of Australia seemed to be left to adopt the former arms of Queen Victoria, and the United Kingdom, renamed, had altered the coat of arms. Number 11 of 1903, an Act relating to naturalisation, assented to 13 October 1903. 5. A person resident in the Commonwealth, not being a British subject, and not being an Aboriginal native of Asia, Africa, or the islands of Pacific, excepting New Zealand, who intends to settle in the Commonwealth, and who a. has resided in Australia continuously for 2 years immediately preceding the application, or b. has obtained in the United Kingdom a certificate of naturalisation or letters of naturalisation, may apply to the Governor-General for a certificate of naturalisation. 13. From the commencement of this Act, the right to issue certificates of naturalisation in the Commonwealth shall be exclusively vested in the Government of the Commonwealth, and no certificate of naturalisation or letters of naturalisation issued after the commencement of this Act under any State Act shall be of any effect. After Federation, it was determined through an Act relating to naturalisation whom would be beneficiary to the newly formed estate. It was immediately assumed that anyone naturalised in the United Kingdom had the same allegiances, so had no need for naturalisation within the Commonwealth of Australia. Anybody native of Asia, Africa, or the islands of the Pacific was not considered naturalised. New Zealand was exempted from this due to its ability to join the Commonwealth already, having treaty with the Crown in 1875. It is worth mentioning here that the Pacific Island Protection Act of 1875 did protect the sovereignty of islanders in a way, although it was not afforded to those of mainland Australia. This is evident wherein the Act 11 of 1903 that the islands of the Pacific are treated as alien to the Commonwealth of Australia. Interesting to note is that the Colonial Boundaries Act 1875 had also now been repealed in Clause 8 of the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, July 1900 UK/PGA, allowing them statehood, with borders left to the Commonwealth of Australia by Constitution. Also interesting to note is that naturalisation was to only be issued by the Commonwealth of Australia and not by the states. One would then question what the birth certificate is, if it is not proof of birthright to the Commonwealth of Australia by way of naturalisation. After 2 world wars, both of which the Commonwealth of Australia was willingly participant, especially under the circumstances outlined leading to the Statute of Westminster Adoption Act 1942, the Commonwealth defined what aliens actually were to the Commonwealth of Australia. Internally, during World War I, a Turkish sympathiser had opened fire on a train near Broken Hill in outback New South Wales, and in World War II, the Japanese bombed the harbours of Darwin and Broome. This in turn led to the incarceration of those in allegiance to a foreign power within war camps, such as the Japanese, whom settled Broome for the pearl diving market in late 1800s. Short title 1. This Act may be cited as the Aliens Act 1947. Commencement. 2. This Act shall come into operation on a date to be fixed by proclamation. Repeal. 3. The Aliens Registration Act 1939 is repealed. Definitions. 4. In this Act, unless the contrary intention appears, alien means any person over the age of 16 years other than a person who a. is a British subject within the meaning of the Nationality Act 1920 to 1946, or b. is, by reason of a declaration made under Section 18A of that Act, entitled within Australia or any territory to all political and other rights, powers and privileges to which a natural-born British subject is entitled. Interesting to note within the Aliens Act 1947 is that one is entitled to all political and other rights, powers and privileges to which a natural-born British subject is entitled. In 1948, we were all still under one realm linked by faith. Although separate powers as countries and nations, defined by Lord Balfour, we all fell under the one realm under the imperial crown. The Commonwealth of Australia being unique in a way, as a commonwealth within a commonwealth, although dubbed merely Australia. In defining the Aliens Act 1947, the government had defined what was not within its jurisdictions, and in making agreements with the IMF for the surety on funds for recovery, needed to define what was within their jurisdictions. Nationality and Citizenship Act 1948. Territory means a territory under the authority of the Commonwealth. The Australian Government means His Majesty's Government in the Commonwealth of Australia. The United Kingdom and Colonies includes the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man. Trust territory means a territory administered by the government of any part of His Majesty's dominions under the trustee system of the United Nations. In the Nationality and Citizenship Act 1948, you can begin to see a slight change is occurring, as the end of two world wars has taken a capacity and financially the Commonwealth of Australia had been put in dire straits. We can see by this snippet of the Act that a territory administered by the government of any part of His Majesty's dominions under the trusteeship of the United Nations. Where nationality is finally removed from the legislation by the newly formed Australian government, we can see that what a foreign is now becoming not foreign. A change in the naming of the Commonwealth of Australia in relation to naturalisation has now become a foreign entity enrolling members into citizenship. Citizenship Act 1973. 4. Section 5 of the Principal Act is amended. A. By omitting from subsection 1 the definition of foreign country, the Australian Government, and trust territory, and B. By omitting from paragraph B of subsection 3 the words 21 years and substituting the words 18 years. We can see through the secret meetings with the Queen that members are no longer in an allegiance with a realm, a faith in which defines the way the Commonwealth of Australia works and is defined at law. Australians are now in allegiance with a nation-state, something that is actually foreign to their birthright in allegiance with Queen Victoria, her heirs and successors. Behind the people's backs in secret, the government of the day, forced at hand under military occupation, changed the people's allegiance, oath, parliamentary oath, oath of office, national anthem, honour roll, and every single department of the governments of Australia, even down to a state level. And the people of the Commonwealth of Australia seemed puzzled, but didn't click to the fact that their very allegiance was being taken from them, removing their birthright in Queen Victoria's legacy into a system of administration under the rules of usufruct. Gough Whitlam changed the Australian government and removed it from His Majesty and also from the Commonwealth of Australia. 2. Section 4 of the Principal Act is amended. A. By omitting the words Division 2, Citizenship by Registration, Section 12-13, Division 2, Citizenship by Naturalisation, Sections 14-16, and substituting the words Division 2, Grant of Australian Citizenship, Sections 12-15, and we can see by the Australian Citizenship Act 1973 that citizenship is now by grant of right, and through actions in the Australian government can plainly demonstrate that it can be revoked at any time by a system that is secret to the citizenship holder and when they are being ejected from the Commonwealth of Australia. Don't have to be told why their grant of right has been revoked by the Attorney-General of the Australian Government. Propose amendments to Citizenship Act includes Oath of Allegiance. Synopsis. The process of naturalisation entails appearance at the citizenship ceremony. The certificate of citizenship takes effect only after an oath of allegiance is sworn. On the other hand, Australian citizenship by registration is conferred upon citizens of Commonwealth countries as soon as certificates are issued. There is no ceremony and no oath. The new oath of allegiance will be as follows. I, AB, swear by Almighty God that I will faithfully uphold the Constitution of Australia and I will faithfully observe the laws of Australia and fulfil my duties as an Australian citizen. The two principal features of the new form of oath are that A. It omits the words renouncing all other allegiance. B. It omits specific reference to the Queen. Department of Immigration, 10 April 1973. From the secret meetings with Queen Elizabeth II and Prime Minister Gough Whitlam, we can see that the new Oath of Allegiance has been defined wherein oath is still by God, but now mentions upholding a constitution, which at Clause 5 has already been affected by foreign ships of war and declarations of warfare relating to the core of the realm and faith. Yet the oath is now to faithfully observe the laws of Australia and fulfil duties as an Australian citizen. Pledge 1. From this time forward, under God, I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people, whose democratic beliefs I share, whose rights and liberties I respect, and whose laws I will uphold and obey. Pledge 2. From this time forward, I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people, whose democratic beliefs I share, whose rights and liberties I respect, and whose laws I will uphold and obey. So we have gone from oath of allegiance to a realm, through a monarch, to oath under God that you will uphold the Constitution, observe laws, and fulfil duties. As time goes by, the Australian government again changes the way it deals with immigration and the oath of allegiance for Australian citizenship. By 2002, the Australian government has resorted to a pledge at law for Australian citizenship. This was headed by the Department of Immigration, which has in 2017 become the Department of Home Affairs of the Australian government, in a replication of the United Kingdom of Great Britain of Northern Ireland's models of home affairs. Try to wrap your head around this. You were once a man of the realm, who created a Commonwealth of Australia by Constitution. You had an allegiance to the head of the realm under an imperial crown. And now you are a subordinate to that Constitution and the laws and duties imposed by it. Instead of having a beneficial interest in the estate of the Commonwealth of Australia, you are put in a position lower wherein you are in trusteeship of your Commonwealth of Australia under the policies and laws therein, instead of having a beneficial interest as men from laws that are supposed to be of higher authority under the blessing of Almighty God. From losing your allegiance to your birthright in the estate of Queen Victoria's realm, to being pulled into a nation state with laws and duties that seem to be an usufruct of your birthright. A pledge at law is also related to a pawn. Something is pledged and a certificate issued as receipt of that pledge. When you consider what a trust territory is, and the fact that now the Australian Citizenship Act 1973 and subsequent changes 2009 has removed the title of trust territory, along with the host of other changes relative to the core of a realm's authority over a people, it is almost as if you have become a wholly new country in a whole new world. What is being pledged in your birthright in the realm that is under the imperial crown, taking up usufruct, was initially a way to keep a bankrupted economy going, but in time only ends up being the demise of the crown imperial. The importance of an oath of allegiance cannot be understated. It is what brings on the realms of treason and treachery against the imperial crown and the people's birthrights unto God's estate, his kingdoms of heaven on earth, now pushed into nation states of the United Nations under trust. An oath is under the blessing of Almighty God, and the very core of a realm that allows the Commonwealth of Australia and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland to exist in the first place by self-determination and defence of said realm. Why is all this so important? 26 June 926. Sir Ant St. Ledger to Henry VIII. R.O. S.T.P. III 304. Parliament began the morrow after Trinity Sunday, but as Ormond, Desmond, and other lords of Munster were not arrived, the solemn Mass of the Holy Ghost was deferred until Thursday, Corpus Christi Day. The said Earls, with others as Lords Barr, Roche, Fitzmaurice, and Birmingham, and McGilpatrick, now Baron of Upper Ossory, came on Tuesday and were at Mass. On Friday the commoners presented their Speaker, Sir Thos Cusack, who made a right solemn preposition praising the King for his extirpation of the Bishop of Rome's power, and for his innumerable benefits shown to his people, which was prudently answered by the Chancellor. Ormond briefly declared both speeches to the said lords in Irish, to their contention, describes how he himself afterwards put forward the bill that the King should be King of Ireland, which was joyously agreed to by both houses, and on Saturday received the royal consent. There were present 2 earls, 3 viscounts, 16 barons, 2 archbishops, 12 bishops, Donna O'Brien, Dr. O'Nolan, and a bishop, deputies of the great O'Brien, the great O'Raleigh, and many other Irish captains, and the common house, wherein are divers knights, and many gentlemen of fair possessions. Describes rejoicing in Dublin, and how prisoners were delivered, and on Sunday solemn Mass at St. Patrick's Church, sung by the ABP of Dublin, after which the Act was proclaimed, there in presence of 2,000 persons, and Te Deum sung. does not write more as the council is writing, being poor, sends a pair of silk gloves, as of him that would as gladly present you with the empire of the whole world, if it were in him to give. Kilmainham, 26 June, signed. pp. 2 ad end. This is an important letter to Henry VIII as monarch to the realm after the creation of the Church of England. In 2 Henry 25 c2, Henry VIII creates a realm in accordance with the Holy Scriptures and extirpates the head of the Catholic Church in England. This letter quotes, praising the king for his extirpation of the Bishop of Rome's power, which creates a new world for England, freed from the core of the Catholic faith which Queen Elizabeth has staunchly defended against. During the period of Reformation, the Catholic Church was seen to be not acting in the word of the Scriptures. Many countries joined in the Reformation against the Catholic Church, including England. As supreme head of the Catholic Church out of the Vatican, the Pope was seen to be the vicar of Christ, the conduit between the people and God. Yet, after the translation of the Bible from Old Latin, Hebrew, and Old Greek into the English tongue, the Bible was able to be read by the greater populations and spread throughout the British Empire. As can be seen by the newspaper clip, the Vatican has banned the Bible throughout what was termed the Dark Ages, although the mention of Vatican archives extends past these ages. King Henry VIII had created the Church of England, becoming the Archbishop to the Church and cutting the head of Rome throughout the realm under his crown. Catholics had land taken from them, were banished from the realm, hung from bell towers by bell ropes, and some hung, drawn, and quartered. The Pope would no longer have control over all of England.